The slice of chocolate birthday cake never made it to my plate. "Sorry, Martha," my daughter-in-law Jessica announced, loud enough for the entire living room to hear, "but you're already fat enough. You don't need cake." My son David burst into laughter, actually slapping his knee like this was the funniest thing he'd ever heard. The room full of parents and children went silent, all eyes on the 67-year-old woman standing there with an empty paper plate. That's when I realized I'd been playing the fool for 4 years. Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments below and hit that like and subscribe button. Let me take you back to how we got here, because this story didn't start with cake. It started with kindness, which in my experience is often the most dangerous thing you can offer certain people. 4 years ago, David called me crying, actually crying. My 42-year-old son was sobbing on the phone about losing their house, about Tyler having to change schools, about Jessica being so stressed she couldn't eat. They were 3 months behind on mortgage payments, he said. The bank was foreclosing. They had nowhere to go. "I'm so sorry to ask, Mom," he'd whispered, his voice breaking. "I know it's not fair, but could you help us catch up? Just this once? I'd just finished paying off my own mortgage. 30 years of payments, finally free and clear. I had savings, retirement funds, and a heart that couldn't bear the thought of my grandson living in his car. So I wrote a check for $12,000. Just this once, I told myself. But once became twice, became every month for 4 years. David always had a reason. Jessica's car broke down. Tyler needed surgery for his tonsils. David's commission checks were delayed. Jessica's mother was sick and needed help. Always something. Always urgent. Always temporary. Just until we get back on our feet, became David's favorite phrase. I must have heard it 200 times, standing in their beautifully redecorated living room, looking at their new leather furniture and Jessica's designer handbag on the counter. I finally understood what getting back on their feet really meant. It meant getting comfortable, walking all over me. The other parents were still staring, some with pity, others with embarrassment for me. Tyler, my sweet grandson, looked confused and hurt. He'd been the one who insisted Grandma Martha get the first piece of cake because it was chocolate, my favorite. "It's okay, sweetheart," I told him, kissing the top of his head. Grandma's not very hungry anyway. Jessica was already moving on, cutting cake for other guests like nothing had happened. David was back to playing host, telling some story about his golf game last weekend. The same golf game I'd indirectly paid for with last month's mortgage payment. I set down my empty plate, gathered my purse and jacket, and walked to the front door. No one called after me. No one asked where I was going. Why would they? The Bank of Martha was still open for business, wasn't it? But as I drove home through the tree-lined streets of our suburban neighborhood, past houses filled with families who actually respected their elderly relatives, I felt something shift inside me. Something that had been bent for 4 years suddenly straightened up. The woman who walked into her empty house that night wasn't the same woman who'd left it with a birthday gift and a smile. This woman was done being grateful for scraps of basic human decency. She was done pretending that financial abuse wrapped in family loyalty was love. When my phone rang the next morning at 8:30 sharp, I knew exactly who it was before I looked at the caller ID. "Hi, Mom, it's David." His voice was casual, cheerful even, like yesterday never happened. "Hope you're having a good morning. Hey, I was wondering if you could swing by the bank today. The mortgage payment's due Thursday, and with Tyler's school starting, things are pretty tight." I sat in my favorite kitchen chair, the morning sun streaming through windows I'd paid to have replaced 2 years ago, and marveled at the audacity. No apology, no acknowledgement, no, "Sorry my wife humiliated you in front of strangers. Just hand over the money, Mom." "Actually, David, I wanted to talk to you about that." "Talk about what?" I could hear the impatience creeping into his voice. He had things to do, places to be, a lifestyle to maintain. "The mortgage payments. I've been thinking." "Mom, please don't overthink this. It's just temporary, you know that. Jessica's been under a lot of stress with her new job, and yesterday was really hard for her. Tyler's party planning just got overwhelming. Overwhelming enough to publicly humiliate the woman who'd kept them housed for 4 years? But I didn't say that. Not yet. "David, can you remind me how much your mortgage payment is?" "Why does that matter?" "It's the usual amount." "Humor me." He sighed dramatically. $2,800, same as always. $2,800, 56 months. That was $156,800. I'd paid for their house entirely while they furnished it with amenities I couldn't afford for myself. "And Jessica's new job, how's that going?" "It's going fine, Mom. Look, I really need to get to work. Can you just transfer the money like usual?" "Transfer the money like usual. Like I was their personal ATM. Like yesterday didn't happen." "I'll get back to you," I said. "What do you mean, get back to me?" "The payment's due Thursday. I heard you the first time, David." After I hung up, I sat in the silence of my house and did something I should have done 4 years ago. I pulled out my bank statements and added everything up. Mortgage payments, $156,800, emergency car repair, $4,500, Tyler's medical bill, $3,200 Jessica's mother's medical expenses, $2,800 David's business investment, $7,500 Christmas gifts from all of us, $1,900 Tyler's summer camp, $2,400 various other temporary helps, $8,900 total, $188,000, $188,000. I stared at the number until it burned itself into my brain. I'd given them enough money to buy a house outright, and in return, I'd been treated like an inconvenience at my own grandson's birthday party. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was remembering David's words from 6 months ago when I'd suggested maybe I should stop paying their mortgage. Mom, you can't abandon us now, after everything we've done for you, everything they'd done for me. Like allowing me to pay their bills was some kind of favor to me. I opened my laptop and logged into my bank account. 2 clicks, and I could transfer another $2,800. Keep the peace, maintain family harmony, stay in my designated role as the useful grandmother who writes checks and keeps quiet. Instead, I closed the laptop and picked up the phone. But I didn't call David. I called Patricia Holbrook, the estate planning attorney who'd handled my husband's will 5 years ago. Martha, how lovely to hear from you. What can I do for you? Patricia, I need to ask you something confidential. If I've been paying someone else's mortgage for years, do I have any legal claim to that property? There was a pause. That's an interesting question. How much are we talking about? Nearly $200,000. Another pause. Longer this time. Martha, I think we need to have a conversation in person. Can you come in this week? How about today? I'll make time. As I drove to Patricia's office, my phone buzzed with texts from David. First, polite reminders about Thursday's deadline, then increasingly urgent messages about how bills don't pay themselves and time-sensitive bank requirements. The last text made me laugh out loud. Mom, I don't want to have to drive over there, but if you're having some kind of episode, maybe we should talk. An episode. That's what he called it when I stopped automatically doing what he wanted. But the real episode was about to begin. Patricia's office was exactly as I remembered it. All mahogany furniture and law books. The kind of place that made you feel like serious business happened here. She welcomed me with genuine warmth, something I'd forgotten was possible in professional relationships. Sit down, Martha. Tell me everything. So I did. Every payment, every excuse, every dismissive comment when I'd tried to discuss boundaries. Patricia took notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions, her expression growing more serious with each detail. Martha, what you're describing is financial elder abuse, even when it's family. The words hit me like cold water. I wouldn't call it abuse exactly. What would you call it? I opened my mouth to make excuses, then stopped. What would I call it? I guess taking advantage. For nearly $200,000? When she put it that way, it was hard to argue. What are my options? Patricia leaned back in her leather chair. Well, you could continue paying and hope they develop gratitude. How's that working for you? Not great. Or you could stop paying and see what happens. But there's a third option that might interest you more. I'm listening. You could formalize this arrangement. If you're going to be their mortgage company, you should get the legal protections a mortgage company has. She pulled out a legal pad and started sketching. We could structure this as a formal loan with your son and daughter-in-law as borrowers. Retroactive documentation, interest rates, default clauses, the works. What would that accomplish? Patricia smiled, and for the first time in days, I felt hope. It would give you options, Martha. Real options. We spent 2 hours going over the details. By the time I left her office, I had a plan that was either brilliant or completely insane. Probably both. The drive home gave me time to think. In 45 years of marriage, my husband Frank had always handled the finances. After he died, David had gradually taken over more and more of my financial decisions. Just to help Mom. Just to make things easier. I'd been grateful for the help, never questioning why making things easier for me somehow always involved making them more expensive. When I pulled into my driveway, David's car was already there. He was sitting on my front porch steps, and he did not look happy. Mom, what the hell is going on? You missed 3 calls. I was busy. Busy with what? You're retired. There it was. The assumption that my time had no value because I wasn't earning money. Never mind that I was busy funding his lifestyle. I was at a lawyer's office. David's face went pale. A lawyer? Why? Are you sick? Are you changing your will? The panic in his voice was telling. Not concerned for my health or well-being. Panic about money, about his access to it. I'm not sick, David. I'm just tired of being treated like an ATM. Mom, come on. We don't treat you like that. No? Then what was yesterday about? He had the grace to look uncomfortable. Jessica was stressed. She didn't mean anything by it. She called me fat in front of 20 people and denied me cake at my own grandson's birthday party. What exactly did she mean? Look, I'll talk to her about that. But this mortgage thing is completely separate. You know we're good for it. good for it. 4 years and nearly $200,000 later, and they were still good for it. David, sit down. We need to discuss some changes. Something in my tone must have warned him this wasn't going to go his way. He remained standing, arms crossed, defensive. What kind of changes? I pulled out the folder Patricia had given me, the kind that protect both of us. The look on his face when he saw the legal documents was worth every penny I'd paid Patricia for this consultation. But what I was about to tell him would be worth so much more. What is this? David snatched the papers from my hands, his face cycling through confusion, anger, and something that looked suspiciously like fear. It's a formal loan agreement with terms. Terms? Mom, I'm your son, not some stranger borrowing money. I almost laughed. David, strangers would have paid me back by now. He scanned the documents, his face getting redder with each page. Interest? You want to charge me interest? On family help? It's retroactive to the first payment 4 years ago. Prime rate plus 2%. Very reasonable by banking standards. Banking standards? We're family. Exactly. So I should be able to trust you more than a bank would, not less. David threw the papers on my porch table. This is insane. You can't just change the rules in the middle of the game? I'm not changing the rules, David. I'm finally learning what they were. For 4 years, I'd operated under the assumption that family meant mutual respect and appreciation, that helping someone in need created gratitude, not entitlement. I'd been playing by entirely different rules than they were. Look, David said, his voice shifting to the coaxing tone he'd perfected as a teenager. I get that you're upset about yesterday. Jessica was out of line, and I should have said something. But destroying our family over a misunderstanding seems extreme. Destroying our family? By asking you to take financial responsibility for your own life? By trying to profit off our misfortune? The word profit hung in the air between us. After $188,000 of gifts disguised as loans, he thought asking for accountability was profiting off his misfortune. David, what's your monthly income? That's not relevant. It is, if you want me to continue funding your lifestyle. He shifted uncomfortably. We do fine. It's just that with Jessica's career change and the adjustments, your salary. David, what do you actually make? $75,000 base plus commission. And Jessica, she's between positions right now, but when she finds the right fit, Jessica had been between positions for 3 years. I'd just never connected those dots before. So on $75,000 a year, you're carrying a $2,800 mortgage, 2 car payments, credit cards, and Tyler's expenses. It's manageable. No, David, it's mathematically impossible, which is why I've been subsidizing your life for 4 years. The truth was settling over both of us like a cold fog. David sat down heavily on the porch step. Mom, we never asked you to pay forever. It was always supposed to be temporary. 4 years is not temporary, David. 4 years is a lifestyle choice. We've been trying to get ahead, but every time we make progress, something happens. Tyler's school fees went up. The car needed major repairs. Jessica's mother died 2 years ago, David. You asked me for money for her medical expenses 6 months ago. The silence stretched between us. I watched my son, my lying, manipulative son, realize he'd been caught. We meant funeral expenses, delayed bills. Show me. What? The bill. The funeral home invoices, the medical expenses. Show me where my money actually went. David stood up abruptly. I don't have to prove anything to you. We're family. You're supposed to trust us. Trust is earned, David. And you just lied to my face about Jessica's dead mother. I picked up the loan documents and held them out to him. Sign these, and we can continue with a formal arrangement that protects both of us. Or don't sign them and figure out your mortgage payments on your own. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. David stared at me like he was seeing a stranger. Maybe he was. The woman who'd raised him would have backed down by now, apologized for being difficult, written another check to keep the peace. What happens if I don't sign? Then Thursday's mortgage payment comes out of your account, not mine. And if we can't make it? I met his eyes steadily. Then you'll need to have a very honest conversation with Jessica about the consequences of biting the hand that's been feeding you for 4 years. As David drove away, his unsigned papers in my hands, I felt something I hadn't experienced in decades. Control over my money, my choices, and my life. But the real test was still coming. Thursday came and went without a phone call. Friday morning, I was watering my tomato plants when my phone finally rang. Not David this time. Jessica, Martha. Her voice was tight with barely controlled anger. We need to talk. About what? Don't play dumb. The mortgage payment bounced. David says you've lost your mind with some legal document nonsense. I continued watering my plants, watching the morning sun filter through the leaves. It's not nonsense, Jessica. It's accountability. Accountability? We've been family for 12 years, have we? Because family doesn't usually humiliate each other at birthday parties. A pause. That was taken out of context. I was joking. What was the joke exactly? Explain it to me. Another pause. Longer this time. You're being ridiculous. We're going to lose the house because you can't take a little teasing. A little little teasing. That's what 4 years of financial support had earned me the right to endure. Public humiliation disguised as humor. Jessica, I have a question for you. What? Do you know how much money I've given you over the past 4 years? I don't keep track of family gifts. They weren't gifts. They were loan payments that you've never attempted to repay. Same difference. No, it's really not. Gifts are given freely without expectation. Loans involve obligation and respect. Guess which one I thought I was giving? I could hear Jessica talking to someone in the background, probably David coaching her through this conversation. Look, she said, her voice shifting to fake sweetness. Why don't you come over for dinner tonight? We can talk through this misunderstanding like adults. I'm not coming to dinner, Jessica. Why not? Because the last time I came to your house for a family gathering, you publicly insulted me. I'm not particularly eager for a repeat performance. Fine, then we'll come to you. No. What do you mean no? I mean no. You don't get to show up at my house and bully me into continuing to pay your bills. The sweetness dropped completely from Jessica's voice. You know what, Martha? You want to know the truth? We've all been walking on eggshells around you for years. Poor widow Martha, all alone, needs to feel useful. Well, congratulations. You've finally pushed us away completely. There it was, the real truth. In Jessica's mind, allowing me to pay their mortgage was a favor to me. They'd been doing me the kindness of taking my money so I could feel needed. Jessica, let me share something with you. I've spent the last 2 days with my attorney, and she's opened my eyes to some interesting facts. Your attorney? Did you know that when someone contributes significantly to another person's mortgage, they can potentially claim a beneficial interest in that property? Silence. Did you know that patterns of financial elder abuse can be prosecuted criminally, not just civilly? Are you threatening us? I'm educating myself about my rights, something I should have done 4 years ago. You're crazy if you think you have any claim to our house. Maybe, but my attorney doesn't think so. Especially not with 4 years of bank records showing regular large transfers from my account to yours. I heard muffled conversation on Jessica's end. Then David's voice came on the line. Mom, stop this. You're scaring Jessica. Good. Maybe she'll start treating me with respect. What do you want from us? Finally, the right question. I want you to sign the loan agreement Patricia drew up. Formal terms, repayment schedule, documentation that protects both of us. And if we don't? I looked out at my garden, at the home I'd worked 30 years to pay off, at the life I'd built before I let them slowly take control of it. Then you find another bank, David, because this one is closed. The silence that followed was the sound of everything changing. By Sunday morning, I'd received 17 text messages, 11 voicemails, and 1 email from David. The progression from pleading to anger to panic was almost scientific in its predictability. Sunday afternoon brought visitors I wasn't expecting. David and Jessica arrived with Tyler in tow, clearly hoping my grandson's presence would soften my resolve. Hi, Grandma! Tyler ran to me with the pure joy only 8-year-olds possess. Mom said you were sick, and that's why you left my party early. Are you feeling better? I hugged him close, breathing in that little boy smell of sunshine and strawberry shampoo. I'm feeling much better, sweetheart. Good. Dad said maybe we could have another cake day, just me and you, without all the other people. My heart clenched. Tyler had noticed the awkwardness at his party. He was trying, in his 8-year-old way, to fix whatever had gone wrong. That sounds perfect, Tyler. Why don't you go pick some tomatoes from Grandma's garden while I talk to your parents? After Tyler skipped outside, the 3 of us stood in my living room like actors who'd forgotten their lines. Mom, David started, we've been thinking about your concerns. Have you now? Jessica stepped forward. Martha, I owe you an apology. What I said at Tyler's party was inappropriate. I was stressed about the catering, about Tyler's friends making a mess, about everything being perfect. I took it out on you, and that wasn't fair. It was a good apology. Well rehearsed, almost convincing. Thank you, Jessica. I appreciate that. So we can move past this whole legal document thing? Actually, no. David's jaw tightened. Mom, she apologized. What more do you want? I want you to sign the loan agreement. We're not signing anything, Jessica said flatly. This has gone too far. I sat down in my favorite chair, the one Frank had bought me for our 20th anniversary. Then I guess we're at an impasse. You can't just cut us off, David said. We have obligations. Tyler's school, the mortgage, car payments. You have obligations, not me. Jessica crossed her arms. Fine. You want to play hardball? 2 can play that game. What's that supposed to mean? It means maybe Tyler doesn't need to spend so much time with a grandmother who's clearly having some kind of mental episode. The threat hit exactly where she intended it to. Tyler was the light of my life, and Jessica knew it. Are you suggesting I'm mentally incompetent? I'm suggesting that suddenly threatening family members with lawyers isn't exactly normal behavior for you. David shot her a warning look, but she continued. Maybe we need to have a conversation with Dr. Harrison about these personality changes, about whether you're still capable of handling your financial affairs independently. There it was, the nuclear option. Question my mental competence, gain control of my finances, and turn me into the grateful elderly relative who writes check and keeps quiet. Jessica, I said quietly, That's a very dangerous game you're suggesting. I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just concerned about someone I care about. I stood up and walked to my desk. From the bottom drawer, I pulled out a manila envelope Patricia had given me on Friday. Jessica, since you're concerned about my mental state, you might be interested in this psychological evaluation I had done on Thursday. Both their faces went pale. Dr. Rebecca Chen, forensic psychologist, specializing in elder abuse cases. She was very thorough. 3 hours of testing, cognitive function, memory, decision-making capacity, susceptibility to manipulation. I held up the official report. Perfect scores across the board, with a specific notation that I show no signs of cognitive decline, no evidence of mental illness, and demonstrate sound judgment in financial matters. You had yourself tested? David's voice was barely a whisper. I had myself protected. Dr. Chen was very interested in my story. She said threats to declare elderly family members incompetent as a way to maintain financial control are more common than most people realize. Jessica sank onto my couch, the fight going out of her. She also said that people who make such threats often reveal their true motivations quite clearly. Patricia found her observations very useful for my case file. Your case file? David asked. The one we're building, just in case. Tyler burst through the back door, his small hands full of cherry tomatoes. Look, Grandma, the red ones are so sweet. I smiled at him, this innocent child caught in the middle of his parents' greed and my newfound backbone. They're beautiful, sweetheart. Why don't you wash them in the kitchen sink? As Tyler ran off, I turned back to his parents. You have a choice. Sign the loan agreement and we continue as a family with clear, respectful boundaries. Or keep threatening me and discover what happens when a mentally competent 67-year-old woman with excellent legal representation decides she's tired of being manipulated. The silence that followed was broken only by Tyler's happy humming from the kitchen. Monday morning brought news I should have expected, but somehow didn't. Patricia called at 9 sharp. Martha, you need to know that David and Jessica retained their own attorney on Friday, James Morrison, downtown. He specializes in financial disputes involving elderly clients. I felt my stomach drop. They're actually going to fight this legally? It appears so. Morrison called my office this morning, fishing for information about your mental state and financial capacity. I told him to pound sand, but professionally. What does this mean for us? It means they're serious about maintaining access to your money, and they're willing to spend money they don't have to insure it. Morrison doesn't work cheap. After hanging up with Patricia, I sat in my kitchen trying to process this development. David and Jessica were hiring lawyers to force me to keep paying their bills. The audacity was breathtaking. My phone rang. David. Mom, we need to talk. About what? About resolving this situation before it gets out of hand. It's already out of hand. David. You hired a lawyer. How did you? Never mind. Yes, we consulted with someone because you're making serious accusations and threatening our family's stability. I'm not threatening anything. I'm simply declining to continue funding your lifestyle. Our lifestyle? Mom, we're just trying to survive. On $75,000 a year plus whatever Jessica occasionally makes, you should be surviving just fine. Millions of families do it. Not with our obligations. You mean not with your choices. There was a long pause. When David spoke again, his voice was different, colder. Mom, Morrison thinks you might have a case for claiming interest in our house, but he also thinks we have a stronger case for proving undue influence. Undue influence? The idea that someone has been manipulating you into making these payments, taking advantage of your loneliness after Dad died, convincing you that paying our bills was the only way to stay connected to your family. I almost laughed. Someone was manipulating me, David, but it wasn't some outside influence. Morrison thinks a court might see it differently, especially if we can show a pattern of increasing isolation, growing suspicion of family members, threats to cut off financial support. Are you seriously trying to argue that you manipulated me into paying your bills so you could claim I was being manipulated? I'm saying the situation is complicated, and maybe we should all step back before this gets ugly. It's already ugly. David, it doesn't have to stay that way. Look, what if we compromise? What if we sign some kind of informal agreement? Nothing as harsh as what your lawyer drew up, but something that acknowledges your concerns. I almost considered it for about 2 seconds. David, let me ask you something. In 4 years of accepting my money, how many times did you express genuine gratitude? What kind of question is that? How many times did you acknowledge that what I was giving you was a gift, not an obligation? Silence. How many times did you check on my financial well-being, ask if the payments were straining my budget, wonder if I might need help with my own expenses? Mom, the answer is never. David, not once in 4 years did you treat me like anything other than a resource to be tapped. That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? Fair is your wife publicly humiliating me at your son's birthday party while I'm wearing a dress I couldn't afford because I've been paying your mortgage. Fair is you laughing along with her. Fair is you calling the next day demanding more money without even acknowledging what happened. Mom, please, I'm done being fair, David. I'm done being understanding. I'm done being grateful for the privilege of funding your ingratitude. What do you want from us? Nothing anymore. Absolutely nothing. What about Tyler? The question hit like a physical blow. Tyler, my sweet, innocent grandson, caught in the middle of this mess. Tyler will always be welcome in my home. Whether his parents are is entirely up to them. After I hung up, I sat in the silence of my house and wondered if I was doing the right thing. Was I destroying my family over money? Was I being vindictive and cruel? Then I remembered Jessica's words, "You're already fat enough," and David's laughter. Some bridges, once burned, leave the ground more fertile for whatever grows their neck. The knock on my door Wednesday evening was urgent, almost frantic. I opened it to find Tyler on my front porch, tears streaming down his face, with Mrs. Henderson from next door holding his hand. "Martha, Tyler showed up at my house about an hour ago. He was riding his bike and said his parents were fighting about you. He asked if he could wait at my house until they stopped yelling." I knelt down and pulled Tyler into my arms. "Oh, sweetheart, are you okay? Grandma, why are Mom and Dad so mad at you? They keep saying bad words about you, and Mom cried at dinner last night. Did you do something wrong?" My heart broke into pieces. This innocent child was paying the price for his parents' financial irresponsibility, and my refusal to enable it anymore. "Tyler, sometimes grown-ups disagree about things, and it makes everyone sad. But you didn't do anything wrong, and neither did Grandma. Are you not going to be my grandma anymore?" "Oh, baby, I will always be your grandma. Always. No matter what happens between the grown-ups." Mrs. Henderson cleared her throat gently. "Martha, I should tell you, I could hear the arguing from my kitchen window. It was intense. After Tyler was settled with milk and cookies, my phone rang. Jessica sounding shrill in panic. "Tyler's missing. He took his bike and we can't find him anywhere. We're calling the police." "He's with me." "What? How did he bring him home immediately?" "I'll bring him home when you and David can speak to each other like civilized adults in front of your son. You can't just take our child." "I didn't take anyone. Tyler came to me because he was scared by your fighting. Maybe instead of blaming me, you should ask yourself why your 8-year-old felt safer with his neighbor than in his own home." An hour later, David arrived alone to pick up Tyler. His eyes were red, and he looked like he'd aged 5 years in the past week. "Mom, can we talk? Just for a minute?" After Tyler gathered his backpack, hugging me tightly and making me promise we'd have that cake day soon, David and I stood on my front porch in the gathering darkness. "The bank called today," he said quietly. "We're officially in default. They're starting foreclosure proceedings." I felt a stab of unexpected pain. Despite everything, I didn't want Tyler to lose his home. "David, you've had 4 years to figure out a sustainable budget. What were you planning to do when I eventually couldn't help anymore?" "I don't know. I guess I thought you'd always be there. That family meant something. Family does mean something. It means honesty. It means gratitude. It means not humiliating the people who love you." David sat down heavily on my porch step. "Jessica's pregnant." The words hit me like cold water. "What? 6 weeks? We weren't planning to tell anyone until after the first trimester," but he trailed off. "But now you're hoping it'll make me feel guilty enough to keep paying your bills." "No, that's not, maybe. I don't know anymore. Everything's falling apart so fast." I sat down beside my son on the steps where I'd taught him to tie his shoes 35 years ago. "David, you're going to be a father again. Tyler's going to be a big brother. Don't you want to provide for your children with money you actually earned?" "Of course I do. But it's not that simple." "It's exactly that simple. You make $75,000 a year. Hundreds of thousands of families live on less and manage to pay their own mortgages. Not in this neighborhood. Not with Tyler's school and Jessica's expectations." There it was. Jessica's expectations. The beautiful house, the luxury cars, the lifestyle that required someone else's money to maintain. Then, maybe it's time to adjust those expectations. David looked at me with something like desperation. "Mom, if we lose the house, where will we go? Who's going to rent to us with a foreclosure on our record? What happens to Tyler's school, his friends?" Every question was designed to make me feel responsible for the consequences of their financial choices. "David, these are problems you should have considered before you built a lifestyle you couldn't afford. We can't afford to move. Security deposits, moving costs, first and last month's rent. We don't have that kind of cash. You don't have cash because every month for 4 years, you spent your entire paycheck knowing I would cover your largest expense. You never learned to budget because you never had to." We sat in silence for several minutes. Finally, David spoke. "What would Dad think about all this?" It was a low blow, and we both knew it. Frank had adored David, had worked 2 jobs to put him through college, had died believing his son was a responsible adult. "Your father would think you should take care of your own family instead of asking your widowed mother to do it for you." David stood up slowly. "I guess this is really it then. It doesn't have to be. Sign the loan agreement. Take responsibility. Build a real relationship based on respect instead of dependency. And if we can't?" I looked at this man who'd once been my little boy, who'd grown into someone who saw my bank account before he saw my face. "Then you'll figure it out, because that's what adults do." true. As David walked away, I realized that the hardest part of loving someone sometimes is allowing them to face the consequences of their choices. But the story wasn't over yet. Friday morning brought a phone call that changed everything. Not from David or Jessica, but from someone I'd never heard of. Mrs. Williams, this is Detective Sarah Martinez with the Financial Crimes Unit. I need to speak with you about some irregularities involving your bank accounts. My blood ran cold. What kind of irregularities? Large, regular transfers over an extended period. We're investigating a potential elder financial abuse case, and your name came up in our system. Could you come in today? 2 hours later, I sat in Detective Martinez's office, wondering how my family dispute had become a police matter. Mrs. Williams, we've been monitoring unusual financial patterns involving seniors in the county. Your account showed significant red flags. She showed me a computer screen with my banking history highlighted in yellow. Every transfer to David and Jessica stood out like a beacon. Detective, I willingly gave that money to my son. It wasn't stolen. That's what we need to determine. Can you walk me through how these payments started? I told her everything. David's initial request, the promise that it was temporary, the gradual escalation of demands, Jessica's public humiliation. Mrs. Williams, what you're describing fits a classic pattern of financial manipulation. The crying phone call, the emotional manipulation, the gradual increase in demands. But they're my family. That's what makes it so effective. Family members account for about 60% of financial elder abuse cases. Detective Martinez pulled out another file. Mrs. Williams, I need to show you something. This is your son David's credit report. My hands shook as I scanned the pages. Credit cards maxed out, loans from multiple sources, a gambling addiction treatment program from 2 years ago that I'd never heard about. Gambling? Online sports betting. From what we can tell, your son has been carrying significant debt for years. The mortgage payments you were making freed up his income to feed his addiction. The room spun slightly. He told me Jessica was between jobs, that they had medical bills, car repairs. Mrs. Williams, Jessica Williams has been employed full-time as a marketing coordinator for 3 years. She makes $45,000 a year. Together, their household income is over $120,000 annually. I stared at the detective, unable to process what she was telling me. That's not possible. They said what they needed to say to keep you writing checks. Your mortgage payments weren't keeping them housed, Mrs. Williams. They were funding your son's gambling and your daughter-in-law's spending habits. Detective Martinez opened another folder. We've been investigating David Williams for 3 months. He owes approximately $80,000 to various online sportsbooks. Some of those debts are with organizations that don't negotiate. What does that mean? It means your son might be in physical danger if he can't pay what he owes. I felt sick. Are you telling me that all my money went to gambling debt? Not all of it, but a significant portion. The mortgage was real, but they could have afforded it on their actual income if they'd managed their finances responsibly. What happens now? That depends on you. We can file charges for financial elder abuse. The evidence is overwhelming. Your son could face significant jail time. Jail? Mrs. Williams, he stole nearly $200,000 from you through lies and manipulation. That's a felony. I sat in that sterile office chair, staring at bank records and credit reports, trying to reconcile the son I'd raised with the man who'd been systematically lying to me for 4 years. I need time to think about this. Of course, but Mrs. Williams, you should know that whether you press charges or not, this situation is about to get much worse for your son. What do you mean? Detective Martinez's expression was grave. The people he owes money to don't wait for police investigations. If he can't pay soon, your family could be in real danger. As I drove home, my phone rang. David, Mom, we need to talk. Tonight. It's important. David, I just came from the police station. A long pause. What police station? They know about your gambling. They know about your debts. They know you've been lying to me for years. Mom, I can explain everything. No more explanations, David. Just the truth. Please, just give me one chance to tell you what really happened. Tyler doesn't know any of this, and Jessica, she's scared. Looking back, I should have hung up, should have let the police handle everything. But he was still my son, and some instincts die hard. 1 hour. Just you. That conversation would change everything I thought I knew about the past 4 years. David arrived at my house that evening, looking like a man who'd reached the end of everything. His hair was disheveled, his clothes wrinkled, and his hands shook when he sat down across from me. Mom, before you say anything, I need you to know that I love you. Whatever else you think about me, I need you to know that. I'm listening. It started 3 years ago. Just small bets on football games, basketball. I won some money at first, thought I was good at it. Then I started losing, but I was so sure I could win it back if I just bet a little more, studied the teams harder. I watched my son confess to destroying his life and mine and felt nothing but emptiness. The debts got bigger faster than I expected. These aren't credit card companies, Mom. These people don't send polite letters about missed payments. So you decided to steal from me. I decided to borrow from you. I was going to pay it back when I won. David, gambling addicts don't win it back. They lose everything. I know that now, but at the time, I thought I just needed a bigger stake, a better strategy. The mortgage payments freed up my salary to make larger bets. For 4 years. For 4 years, he admitted. And Jessica knew? David's face crumpled. She knew about the gambling. She didn't know how bad it was until recently. She thought I was betting small amounts, under control. When she found out about the real debts last month, she panicked. So she decided to humiliate me into continuing to pay? She thought if she made you angry, you'd demand more involvement in our finances. She was trying to make you back off, not cut us off completely. The twisted logic was almost funny. Jessica had been so afraid of me discovering the truth that she'd sabotaged the very relationship that was enabling David's addiction. David, how much do you currently owe? $87,000. As of yesterday, I closed my eyes. And if you don't pay, they've made it clear what happens to all of us. They've threatened Tyler. David nodded miserably. And the baby. They know Jessica's pregnant. They know everything about us. For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than anger toward my son. Fear. Not for him, but for my grandson and my unborn grandchild. What do they want? Full payment by the end of the month, or they start collecting in other ways. I sat in my living room, looking at my son, who'd gambled away nearly $200,000 of my money and put his entire family in danger, and realized that despite everything, I still loved him. David, I'm going to tell you something that's going to sound crazy. What? The police are building a case against you for financial elder abuse. If they prosecute, you could go to prison for 5 to 10 years. David went white. Mom, no, please. But if you go to prison, Tyler and Jessica lose everything anyway, and that doesn't solve the immediate problem with your gambling debts. What are you saying? I pulled out my phone and showed him a bank statement. I'm saying that I liquidated some investments yesterday. I have enough money to pay your debts completely. Mom, I can't ask you to. You're not asking, I'm offering. But there are conditions. Anything. You sign yourself into a residential gambling addiction program. Tonight, I've already researched facilities. There's one in Colorado that has an opening. But Jessica's pregnant, Tyler. We'll be safer with you in treatment and your debts paid than with you at home and dangerous people looking for money. David stared at me. You'd do that? After everything? I'd do that for Tyler and for your unborn child. And because despite everything you've done, you're still my son. What about Jessica? Jessica will need to find a job that uses her actual skills and pays appropriately. You'll both need to learn to live within your means. And when you get out of treatment, you'll pay me back every penny with interest. How? However long it takes, even if it takes the rest of my life. David broke down completely. Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so goddamn sorry. I know you are, but sorry doesn't fix this. Action does. 3 hours later, I drove David to the airport. He carried one suitcase and a commitment to 90 days of intensive treatment. Before he went through security, he hugged me tighter than he had since he was Tyler's age. Thank you, he whispered, for saving us all. Don't thank me yet, I told him. Thank me when you're clean and Tyler's safe, and you've learned to be a man your children can be proud of. 6 months later, I received my first loan payment from David, $50. It would take him 40 years to pay me back at that rate, but it was a start. The same week, I received my first crayon drawing from my granddaughter, Emma Rose Williams, age 3 months. She'd been born healthy and beautiful, with David present via video call from his treatment facility. Jessica had apologized, sincerely this time, and taken a job managing social media for a local nonprofit. She was learning to budget, attending support group meetings for families of gambling addicts, and slowly becoming the woman I'd hoped she could be. Tyler was thriving in his new school, a public elementary that was actually better than his old private one. He'd been confused about all the changes, but children are resilient. He still spent every Saturday with me, and we still had our cake days, just the two of us. As for me, I learned that saying no to people you love doesn't mean you love them less. Sometimes it means you love them enough to help them grow up. I also learned that the phrase that changed everything, the 3 words I said to David when he called about that mortgage payment, had more power than I'd ever imagined. Figure it out. Sometimes the most loving thing you can say to a grown child is exactly that. Figure it out, because that's what adults do. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.